So while I released BassBuddy last month, there's still some things that I didn't feel like was quite there yet, and that is, let's say there's some songs that I really like and I want to keep track of. There's actually no way of favoriting a song. So in this video, I figured I may as well add a favorite system. So to start off, I figured I'm going to need to add a way to actually keep track of what songs are being favorited. So the class I've got here is my song class, which actually keeps all the information about a single song. I figured here would be a good place to actually put the tag to see if it was favorited or not. Next, I'd figure a way to add in the UI to actually tell if a song is favorited. So quickly open up Photoshop and created like a on state star and an off state star, which is obviously going to visualize if a song's favorited. Now I had to figure out where I actually wanted to display the star, and I figured that the best spot for it would actually be at the very start of the row. Like, yeah, I could have created a right click sub menu and favorite it that way, but that just seems a bit long to me. So here I'm just trying to figure out the positioning. I know that each row is 36 pixels in height, so I'm gonna shift everything over by 36 pixels just to allow that space at the start of the row for me to actually add in the star. Now that I actually get to some of the code, each of the rows I have is actually placed within a grid. So in order to add in a spacer at the start, I'm going to need to add a new column constraint, which will allow me to place another column basically within the grid. And then running that new bit of code, we can see that a new column has actually been added, and at the minute the artist is sitting in there, but we'll deal with that in a bit. Now that we know the column's there and it works all good, we're going to actually add a way for our rows to know that the favorite icon belongs to them. So we're going to create an image view, which is JavaFX way of showing images, to actually have that star or that image view associated with that row. And then just by adding some code into the constructor of the row, we're going to have it to check if that song is favorited, display the on image, and then if it's not favorited, display the non-favorited image. So we'll just quickly add the new image view into the column of the row, and then move all the other ones over a row just so it fits in nicely. Now, to just quickly test if our code actually works, I'm going to manually update the database to say that one of the songs has actually been favorited, and just see if it displays the other image. Now we're actually going to add a function which is able to toggle the visual state, or the UI for the actual star. So once we click on a star, it's going to either change it to favorited, or if we click a star again, it's going to be unfavorited. We're just using JavaFX's built-in event handling. So basically saying once we click on it, change its state to favorited or vice versa. So after running the code I just created, obviously it didn't work, so we're going to have to use the debugger to figure out why it's not working. After some quick investigations, I've actually found that I'm using the wrong way to actually change the image. So rather than setting our fav image view variable to a new image view, we actually need to use the method called setImage, which is actually what's going to replace it. After I found out I need to use setImage, I now had to figure out a way to convert my current method of loading the image into the JavaFX type image, because when I initially tried this I actually imported the wrong image, which was Java's AWT rather than the JavaFX image library. So obviously at first it just wasn't working and I couldn't figure it out. After playing around with it for a short while and just running into random null pointers or file missing errors, I eventually just gave up and went back to my original method of loading the image and then trying again with that. And eventually, hooray, I managed to actually get it so I could change the state between on and off between the different stars. So now that my quick and dirty way of getting my code to work, I now decide to extract the common traits. So I'm going to move all the duplicate bits of code into its own method, and then just simply have one function called in the if-else statement, which is actually going to do all that work for me now. Now that I've got all the visual stuff working, I now need to actually implement the kind of backends to tell the system if a song is favorited or not. So if you remember at the start of the video where I actually added that favorite tag to the song, yeah, it's kind of useless now because it's going to be a bit more difficult for me to save that data. So I decided I've got a class which is called my app state. And the app state is basically it's like a state management system for the application. So rather than storing if a song is favorited or not within the song class itself, I'm going to have it stored within the app state, so it's going to make it easier for me to actually save the data of whether a song is favorited or not. So with doing this, I obviously now need to change how I'm checking if a song is favorited or not. So rather than checking the song itself, I'm actually going to check inside the app state the array list, which actually contains all the favorited songs. So if a song is in that list, then it's favorited. If it's not in that list, then it's not favorited. So with the system now being able to detect if a song is in the app state, I need to actually make it so once I close the application and reopen it, it's going to actually remember all of those songs. So I'm going to need to somehow save the data from the list into some type of file which can store it. So I'm just stealing a bit of code I've used which stores the app state's hash table, and then I'm just going to basically save all the data in that list as a JSON object which I can then read from. So after creating these methods and then actually testing them out, I found that it wasn't actually displaying what I was expecting it to display. So in BassBuddy, I've actually got a little debug menu which I can enable by turning on a config. So I'm going to use this debug menu to quickly tell me, okay, what songs do I currently have in my favorited, in the system. So I'm just going to quickly add a couple methods here and there in my debug console, which basically once I click the button, it's going to tell me, okay, these are all the songs in the favorited, and this is what the system knows about. It's up to you to try and figure out why it ain't displaying how you think it should. After doing some debugging, I figured that the reason it wasn't actually working was because I was loading in basically a different type of song to what the actual system knows about. I'm not 100% sure why it's not working, but I figured the best way to go about this was, rather than storing my songs as actual song objects, I only really need to check whether the original track matches up with the original track of the song that's loaded into the system. So I'm changing my favorited song list from a list of type songs to a list of type strings, which is going to be much easier to determine whether that song has been favorited or not. And obviously by changing it to a list of type string, I'm going to have to update all the methods that were originally either using or expecting a list of type songs. So if I just quickly change all that, then everything starts to work hunky-dory. Now that I know I'm able to save and load in if a song's favorited or not, and I'm able to change the state of it within the application, I figured the best way to actually display my favorited songs would just be to add another button in my little menu. So I'm going to quickly add in all the code and the logic to basically, once I select my only fave button, it's just going to bring you back songs that are obviously in your favorites. And then later down the road, I do actually add in another button to have an include favorite, just so you're not restricted to only viewing your favorites. And you can also use the other frequency filtering systems to display, say, let's say you want a favorited song that's, 28 Hertz, you can do that now. Well, later. So this bit was recorded the day after, but basically now that I feel like I'm happy with how the favoriting system works, it's time to actually update the versioning of the program. So it's going to go from 1.0.0 to 1.1, and then obviously if there's any bugs or anything that come back from it, it'll have to get incremented to 1.1.1 just to keep all the versioning the same. So then quickly loading the application after doing a fresh build, and then loading the database, and then we can see that our favoriting system works all good, and the program's actually detected a different version, so I'm going to need to update that on the website. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you actually made it this far, I know that code is actually generally pretty boring to a lot of people, but I just found this a bit of fun, just actually trying to show my development process and kind of what I was thinking when adding a new feature to my program. But if you did like what you see, hit the subscribe button, and I guess I might see you guys next time if I make another. But goodbye.